When chaos becomes the mirror of a wounded soul, the psychological effects of narcissistic cruelty. I recently stumbled upon a video discussing clutter as a trauma response, and it immediately made me think about how this concept fits into the world of narcissistic abuse. Survivors often underestimate just how complex their healing journey becomes, because narcissistic abuse rarely ends with emotional bruises alone. It leaves behind complex trauma and a constellation of trauma responses that seep into daily life in subtle, almost invisible ways. One of these overlooked responses is clutter. And while clutter may seem like a simple issue of disorganization, psychologists emphasize that it is often a physical echo of psychological warfare. Today, we're going to explore exactly how clutter emerges as a trauma response in survivors of narcissistic abuse, why the mind gravitates toward it, and how healing begins when we finally understand its roots. If this resonates with you and you're eager to learn more about the mind after trauma, consider following along. Awareness is one of the most powerful tools in reclaiming your life from narcissistic influence. When we talk about clutter here, it isn't just about the pile of clothes sagging on the chair in the corner or the stack of untouched paperwork staring at you with silent judgment. It's not even limited to the physical realm. Psychologists point out that clutter can also take shape as a chaotic mental fog, a jumble of racing thoughts, unfinished plans, emotional noise, and the constant feeling of being one step behind. For survivors of narcissistic abuse, this chaos is not laziness, nor is it a lack of discipline. It is a direct, silent consequence of living under the psychological domination of someone who constantly destabilized reality. Clutter becomes a message from the nervous system itself, whispering that something deeper has been wounded. It stands as evidence of a war fought behind closed doors, where every decision, emotion, and boundary was slowly eroded by manipulation. To truly understand this, we must venture into the realm of executive functioning, a term psychologists use to describe the brain's internal command center. Think of your mind as a bustling office where tasks are sorted, plans are coordinated, and emotions are processed with precision. Executive functioning is what allows you to prioritize, make decisions, regulate emotions, and manage the flow of daily life. But what happens when this mental office is struck by the relentless storm of narcissistic abuse? Psychologists describe how chronic toxic stress physically alters the brain's functioning. The filing cabinets of the mind get knocked over, the paperwork of responsibilities scatters across the floor, and the once organized systems grind to a halt. Suddenly, simple tasks, organizing your desk, planning your day, deciding what to keep or throw away, become monumental challenges. The nervous system, pushed into survival mode for too long, shuts down. Survivors often collapse internally, not because they lack willpower, but because their brain has been rewired to survive, not to thrive. Within this collapse, clutter takes on a new form. It becomes the external mirror of internal chaos. For survivors, living under the control of a narcissist means living in a state of psychological confinement. The abuser's tactics, gaslighting, blame-shifting, emotional unpredictability, create a constant sense of instability. Psychologists explain that when someone's reality is continuously distorted by an abuser, their sense of self erodes. Choices become dangerous. Decisions become traps. Identity becomes unclear. After leaving the abusive environment, survivors often feel like strangers in their own lives, unsure of where to begin rebuilding. Clutter, strangely enough, becomes part of that rebuilding. It shows up as the unfinished corners of life that the survivor hasn't yet had the emotional bandwidth to face. It reflects not failure but fragmented control, the delicate process of learning how to make decisions again after years of being punished for having them. And here lies one of the most psychologically fascinating paradoxes. Clutter can also represent freedom. Psychologists say that many survivors subconsciously hold on to items because, for the first time in a long time, they can. These objects are not being judged by the narcissist. They are not being scrutinized or weaponized. Clutter becomes a subtle, adaptive response, a way of grounding oneself in a world that once felt impossible to influence. It gives survivors a sense of control over something tangible, especially when internal emotions feel unmanageable. In moments of overwhelm, Acquiring or holding onto items becomes a quick emotional patch, a temporary buffer that distracts from the pain of introspection. These items may symbolically fill the emotional void left by the abuse, offering a fleeting sense of comfort where safety once felt impossible. Psychologists encourage survivors to approach this clutter with compassion rather than shame. Healing begins not by forcing yourself into rigid organization, but by understanding what the clutter represents. Is it grief? Is it fear of letting go? Is it the mind's attempt to reclaim autonomy? When survivors start asking these questions, they shift from judgment to awareness. And with awareness comes the first sense of real stability. Strategies that help include trauma-informed decluttering, nervous system regulation, gentle exposure to decision-making, and rebuilding executive function through small, manageable routines. Every item sorted becomes a symbolic act of reclaiming your life from the narcissist's psychological grip. Clutter, then, is not the enemy. It is the evidence of survival, a map of where the trauma has touched your life and where healing still needs space to bloom. But before we close this chapter entirely, it is important to delve deeper into what psychologists observe as the second wave of healing. What happens after a survivor begins recognizing clutter as a trauma response and starts taking small steps toward reclaiming their environment. Many survivors notice that as soon as they touch an object, an old receipt, a broken trinket, even a shirt they no longer wear, a storm of memories rises to the surface. This reaction is not random. Psychologists explain that trauma imprints itself not only in the mind, but also in sensory associations. Objects become anchors for experiences, reminders of who you were during the abuse, or symbols of what you lost. For many survivors, clutter becomes a frozen timeline, each item holding emotions they were once too overwhelmed or unsafe to process. This is why decluttering can feel unexpectedly emotional or even frightening. Your nervous system is bracing itself for the possibility of pain. Recognizing this emotional layer is critical because it means you are not weak. You are simply encountering the psychological residue of trauma. Survivors often report another internal conflict while decluttering, a peculiar sense of guilt for letting go of items they don't even need. Psychologists emphasize that this guilt is rooted in the psychological conditioning enforced by the narcissist. Throughout the abusive relationship, victims were punished for waste, for mistakes, for losing things, or for making decisions that displeased the narcissist. Over time, this trains the brain to associate decisions, especially decisions about ownership or organization, with anxiety. Every item becomes a tiny moment of judgment, a test you fear you'll fail. The narcissist, on the other hand, benefits from this indecision. According to clinical experts, narcissists often thrive on creating dependency and learned helplessness, reinforcing the idea that you can't be trusted with your own choices. After leaving the relationship, this imprint lingers, leaving survivors stuck between wanting freedom and fearing the consequences of exercising it. Understanding this makes the path forward clearer. Every decision you make, even choosing to throw away a single useless paper, is an act of reclaiming the autonomy the narcissist tried to destroy. Another powerful factor psychologists highlight is emotional numbing. During narcissistic abuse, the nervous system often toggles between hyperarousal, hypervigilance, anxiety, fear, and hypoarousal, shutdown, emotional numbness, dissociation. When survivors begin sorting through clutter, they may unexpectedly feel nothing. No grief, no connection, no clarity. This emotional numbness can feel confusing or even shameful, but psychologists insist it is actually a protective mechanism. Your brain learned to shut down emotions to survive the emotional unpredictability of the narcissist. And now, long after the danger has passed, it still struggles to trust that expressing or feeling emotions is safe. The key strategy here is pacing. Trauma-informed therapists encourage survivors to work in emotional windows, brief periods where they're regulated enough to tolerate discomfort without overwhelming themselves. This approach not only prevents re-traumatization but also gently retrains the nervous system to engage with emotions at a safe rhythm. As survivors move further into their healing, many notice that clutter reflects a deeper fear, the fear of stillness. Psychologists explain that after prolonged trauma, silence and stability can feel foreign, even threatening, because survivors have become acclimated to chaos. When the narcissist was present, quiet moments often preceded attacks or emotional ambushes. So now, when the environment becomes clean, open, and calm, survivors may feel an unexpected surge of unease. A tidy room feels vulnerable. A clear desk feels exposed. The mind instinctively clings to clutter because clutter feels familiar, and familiarity feels safe, even when it isn't healthy. This moment is pivotal. Psychologists encourage survivors to approach this fear with mindfulness practices that retrain the body to associate calm with safety, not danger. Simple grounding exercises, slow breathing, or even sitting in one decluttered corner for a few minutes a day can help build new neural pathways that redefine stillness as peaceful rather than threatening. Another crucial element to consider is how narcissists themselves respond to clutter, because the dynamics from the past can continue influencing the survivor long after the relationship has ended. Narcissists often weaponize clutter, shame, or imperfections to maintain superiority and control. Some demand spotless perfection. Others deliberately create chaos to destabilize the victim. Psychologists note that this inconsistency is not accidental. It keeps the victim emotionally dysregulated, always trying to anticipate a moving target. Understanding this pattern helps survivors see their current clutter through a different lens. It is not merely a mess. It is a psychological battleground shaped by someone else's manipulation. Breaking free requires shifting the internal narrative from "I'm failing" to "I'm healing." Every small act of organization becomes a symbolic act of defiance against the patterns the narcissist instilled. Finally, psychologists emphasize that the journey of decluttering, both internal and external, is ultimately a journey of identity reconstruction. When survivors pick up an item and decide whether to keep it or release it, they are not just sorting objects. They are sorting fragments of themselves. What belongs to the old version of you, the one who lived in survival mode, and what belongs to the new you who is slowly learning to breathe again. This ongoing process is not meant to be rushed, because healing is not linear. There will be days when you feel empowered enough to reorganize an entire room, and days when simply moving one object from one drawer to another is enough. Both count, both are valid, both are healing. As we bring this continuation to a close, remember this: clutter is not your enemy. It is a message, a map, a mirror, a testament to the strength you showed during the darkest moments of your life. Psychologists remind us that healing requires patience, self-compassion, and support. So keep reaching out to communities, to therapists, to trusted friends. Your journey is not meant to be walked alone. And each step, no matter how small, is not only movement forward but an act of reclaiming the life that was once overshadowed by narcissistic control. Continue gently, continue bravely, continue healing.